Okay, 1 second. Let me invite you.
Yep.
Okay, should be there. Okay. Do you check? Do you finish the London book? How are you doing with that?
Page 160, so I almost finished it, but I still got a couple more chapters to go.
Okay. And any question about that? What are you reading
Um,
exactly? You remember which chapter?
they went over some of the stuff we were talking about before, but there was a different line that they had, because a lot of the games you showed me, they went knight f3 and then bishop f4, and then they went bishop d6, and that's when you said you could let them take on f4, but the lines in the book, I think, they had something where they went bishop d6 before I even went knight f3, I think. I don't know if it was like
I
um
mean, maybe it's because white goes e3, knight e2.
it was like something like this
Maybe
maybe.
even here. Yes,
Yeah,
but
so like
yeah.
here I don't know if knight d2 was like, because I even looked at the database and I didn't see a lot of knight d2s here, so like I think they just recommended going back.
I'm thinking that knight e2, maybe you blunder the pawn if takes queen f6.
Hmm.
That could be a reason. Maybe that's why we have to. Let me check. Takes. Okay, yeah, queen f3, queen f6 is the best. We still have knight e2. We don't blunder the pawn, but the computer doesn't like this too much because then our pieces are a bit silly, and c5, knight c6 gonna be quite annoying. That's why probably knight f3. It's more or less the same, right? Because if they takes and they attack the pawn, you just go g3 or queen d2,
Hmm.
and you defend. Another idea I saw that I forgot to mention, it's that here, this e6 here, bishop d6, 95 is quite interesting. Um, not sure if it's like objectively giving you an advantage, right? But then you can play very similar setup. And I saw this move recommended in some files. I
Hmm.
believe black needs to do something. I mean, I was analyzing this move, uh, and I think the computer wants to play something very interesting that usually is a mistake. For example, castle, let's say knight e2, c5, c3. And in this position, the best move or one of the best ideas I saw for black is playing c4. That most of the times is a mistake, right? Because we can play for e4. But if we try to play for e4, black is playing like queen c7 and knight d7 very quickly. And we won't be able to do too much, right? And I guess after this, we can play b5. Uh, so I don't know. This knight e5 could be a decent try. Because if black plays normal, I don't know, something like this, we will just continue with our development. We can go here and f4 many times. And if we keep the knight on e5 and we control e4, it's going to be very nice as well. So that's only for this order, right? Maybe not for e6, um, e3, bishop d6 here. I'm not sure. I guess we can go bishop c3, we can take, we can go knight f3. It's more or less similar to all the rest, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then, well, I'm playing the Olympiad, the online Olympiad. I don't know if you know. It's been last 3 days,
Oh yeah.
and I played a game against a London that I wanted to show you something because you don't have too much time to prepare for the openings, right? Especially because 4 players can play. Everyone is like changing the team all the time. It's really hard. So I had like 10 minutes to take a look at my opponent game. I mean, I was checking what he did on chess.com, right? And he was playing the London. In the 10 minutes I could prepare, I saw he would play the London. But he was playing something strange that I was surprised that it's quite interesting as well. That he was playing bishop here, e3, and after c5 he was always playing d takes c5, which is a bit strange, right? Because if you want to play the London, then you just go c3, knight e2, knight f3, and bishop d3 always, right? But he was playing d takes c5, and I saw again very quickly with the engine this idea, and I couldn't find anything too good because here they go bishop b5, and they play with knight c3, and it's not so easy to record the pawn because before a3 will happen, right? So I think this could be even better for white. So I decided I would play with I mean King's Indian style, d6, knight d7, e5, something like that. Then my opponent go knight f3. And I didn't expect this because he was always playing bishop f4 in move 2 to play this line with d takes e5. And then I thought, I mean, looks like if you don't know uh, these details, maybe it looks like I was thinking move 2 for 1 minute in a 15-minute game. It's like strange. But I was considering, okay, can I go d5 c5 now? And I don't think d takes c5 is gonna be so good, right? When he already played knight f3. So I went d5, bishop f4, c5, e3, knight c6, right? This is a line we also talked about that if you go c3, I go queen b6. This is what I wanted, right? Queen b3, c4, and the typical endgame. And well, and knight b2 is what I consider the best move. And then I can play pawn takes, bishop f5, which is another line I like, especially because queen b3, bishop d6. I mean, this idea sacrificing b7, I believe, is really good for black. But the question is, uh, what do you think about the move knight c3? That in many lines is a possibility, right? Like for example, I'm pretty sure in this position knight c3 is much more interesting than what my opponent did because well, this is an alternative, right? If I go e6, he goes knight b3 or knight b5 at some point. I need to play knight a6, and that's something that has been popular in the last days or years, more than days.
Mm.
So what happens in? What do you think about this one? Like he went knight c3 here, and well, I was a bit surprised, but at the same time, I believe this has a problem. Like, what can you play as black?
Like, well, either taking on d4, but like I was gonna try to get the bishop to b4, but we got to move a pawn, and that seems too slow. And I was also looking at something like,
Yeah, I mean, think that if you go e6, then maybe knight b5 is maybe winning actually. I suppose this is very annoying, right? We don't have a good way to stop knight c7. So that's the main trick, let's say. But what I want to show you here is that when we already play knight c6, the move knight c3 makes no sense because we can just move the bishop, I mean, to g4 ideally. And after knight b5, we have rook c8, right? So uh, I was thinking, should I play bishop g4 first or c takes g4 first? Here it's a bit tricky, right? Because probably I would play bishop g4 if I'm not sure about c takes knight b5, right? Because this is the main point. After c takes g4, can he play knight b5, right? And if I go bishop g4, can he play d takes and after e6 knight a4? That's a typical reaction, let's say, right? To maybe you can take the pawn and go queen a5 check and recover, but then you lose the bishop. And this is a typical. I think if we go a6, for example, they play d takes, and after this they go knight a4. So it's not like we lose the pawn because we can take it immediately. But a position like this, it should be good for white. Like two bishops, black is missing this bishop. Um, so my thinking here was, okay, I take, allowing knight b5, or I go bishop c4, allowing d takes c5. Um, First of all, what do you think of c takes, knight b5 here?
Hmm. Um, I don't know what to do about knight c7. Looking at e5, but I don't know if it helps anything.
Yeah, e5, I suppose he will take with the knight. And there are still some tricks with knight c6, knight c7, right?
Mhm. Give a check with queen a5, but I don't see how that helps.
This was something I was trying to remember. I wasn't sure. I thought queen a5 was the move, and I think it's the only move for black here to be okay. And then white has a lot of moves here because there is c3, there is queen d2, there is even b4 that makes some sense if you don't know the line, because b4 you have to take with the queen, then I go c3, right? Then you take, and then I can go knight c7, knight a8. But then, well, there is probably c2 check, queen d2, queen b1, something like that. I have no idea actually. Um, and I was thinking, yeah, this line actually. I don't know the order; is probably the same. But before queen takes and then c3, and when I take, I mean, if you go knight c7 and you take my rook, it's a mess. I mean, here I remember something like this: queen b1 and bishop f5. That if you don't know this line, it's easy to believe that white is fine. I mean, they took a rook, we didn't do anything. But we do this, trying to play e5, bishop e4, and bishop a3 as well later. And it seems to be okay for black. So it's a bit tricky that all this e takes e4 move possible is because queen a5 will be fine. Uh, and we kind of have to know this. Otherwise, I suppose bishop g4 is just much simpler. Because after this, we can do e6, and after knight a4, this is an important moment. What can we play here? There is probably two good ideas.
Queen a5 still.
Queen a5, yes, I suppose c3 will happen because the queen is still defending on a4, right?
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I don't see anything else. Like, I don't think I want to take the knight on f3.
Well, I think that's the point, right? Because when you take f3, he can't take with the queen because now queen a5 wins. So in a position like this, I guess what we have to do to be better is just knight h5, take the bishop, then go bishop c5, queen a5, and we will be playing against like the pawn structure. I mean, imagine bishop c3 takes, uh, I don't know, takes, and now we go bishop c5, or even sometimes there is this tactic of this and b5 that could be working here because this knight will be in trouble, right? This. If you go b3, I go b5, and I take c3. So it's all it's all more or less tactical to justify the things. Then
Hmm.
I was thinking all this, and the truth is that when I took on d4, my opponent played e takes d4 almost immediately, and this is just bad. I mean, if you do this knight c3, it's probably because you want to make the game complicated, right? After this, I went bishop g4. Now knight b5 makes no sense because of rook c8, and now the knight is super bad on c3, right? Because I can just make normal moves, and doesn't matter how the game ended, right? But he went bishop e2, e6, castle. Now I took, and I went bishop d6, right? And here, well, maybe takes is more or less equal, but this knight on c3 is bad. I mean, he should play knight e2, yes, c3, bring the knight to d3 maybe, and try to equalize because black is already very nice. But he went queen d2, and now after takes queen b6, I won a pawn and then the game. I mean, because the knight on c3 is bad. I mean, he did something to complicate things, takes b7, but I took c2, and I think it was something like this. I took, and then I went castle, and I'm winning. Rook c1, queen a4, and the extra pawn plus these two pieces very bad are bad. But I'm saying this because there are some alternatives, like the one he was playing, like he was doing bishop f4, d5, e3, c5, d takes c5. That seems to be very reasonable if you study this one. Knight c3 here is also very reasonable because the knight is on b8, right? So I need to play a6, for example, and then we go for the other line. But the moment he went knight c3 is really bad because my knight is already on c6. This move is not threatening this if I go bishop g4. And well, it's some different type of London, right? I wanted to show you this.
Hmm.
Then yeah, I guess I don't know if you have some question related to any setup for black. I mean, I don't know if you are checking the bishop d6 lines in the book, or c5 queen b6. Where is the any problem you might have, or I don't know. Do you have any question there?
There was one thing, I don't remember what chapter it was, but I think they did something that was kind of like a Cambridge Springs, but with an extra tempo. And I think I started just learning all those lines. There's somewhere where you go um, Queen A4, but but then the next chapter said that the lines are similar to the previous chapter, so I had to go back and see exactly what the
But
lines were because
queen in which line we play queen a4? I'm trying to think, but I guess uh maybe in some line like this you are saying, but I don't really know. Like when they play with g6, maybe in a position like this in some line I do queen a4, but I don't think queen a4 is never going to be like really necessary. I was thinking I know something like, oh, I want to play queen b6.
it's a different line. I would have to let me
Not this one.
see.
I don't know because queen a4. Where do we play queen a4? I just don't recall anything.
I'm about to
I'm
sign
checking it.
into my notes.
There is a new book I have. It's called. I will write the name here. I think it's a database by Chesable. It's called I will send the name on Skype. This one. London system in 12 practical lessons. Could
Better.
be nice if you take a look. I will send you the PGN.
All right, one moment. There's actually somewhere like on move 18 that they would win Queen A4, so it would be hard to know off
Yeah,
the
but
top of
you
your head
remember
what it
like
was.
how the structure was, or in which
Yeah, I
case
can
we
pull
could.
it up. Um, Actually, there's a few places where there was Queen A4, so I need to find the right one. Um, so So here, because sometimes I think they recommended Queen B3, but then they also mentioned the Queen A4. And it's kind of like a
Okay, okay. Yes, yes, I remember probably doing Queen B3 most of the times. And
and
in that
like
case,
and then you're just kind of like pressuring like C6 and stuff.
uh-huh.
So between those two, I just started like learning all of these lines. But I think if I had learned the Queen B3 one, then maybe it's more similar to the other London
Yeah, because
chapters.
Queen A4 is probably only in this situation, right? Because usually you want to play Queen B3. And after Queen B3, what they usually do is Queen D7 or Queen C8, right? Never a move like B6. This would be weakening so badly. But and then I think here Queen C8 should be a move, because if you do knight Queen D7, knight E5 is kinda, well, not winning because you still go Queen C8. But if you play knight takes pawn takes, then yes, it's winning because you attack the pin on B5 and the knight on F6. But they do this, and this line, yes, probably okay for black. Here they go B4, C4, then they go E3 trying to make you take, and seems reasonable. I don't know if you can do something different before, like this bishop C4. If you play, yeah, this seems reasonable actually. Let me check if I have something here. So E3, C5, knight E2, and bishop G4. Knight F3, E6. Yeah, yeah, Queen A4 in this particular case, it's a very reasonable try. The main move is Queen B3, and okay, maybe it would be easier for you to always play with Queen B3, right? For example, if you do Queen B3, Queen C8, you still have a good way of playing here. That it's in the same spirit of some Slavs, where all you can do is try to take this bishop for a knight, right? And it's not too much, I know. But imagine you do H3. Well, if they take and we take, we are slightly better. If they go bishop H5, that is the typical move. How can we go for this bishop? Which move you think we could do in order to try winning the bishop pair, right?
So look at G4 and Knight H4.
Uh-huh. So yeah, actually that's working to take the bishop. I don't know why people usually play knight H4 immediately. I don't know what, if we are trying to avoid something like bishop E4 maybe, or knight E4. No. Seems like in this case it's also quite good. Like, yeah, this is what we would do. But knight h4 immediately, sometimes you will stop some tricks with, for example, let's suppose we do this, and they play bishop e4 or knight e4, or, yeah, not so many lines. And actually, after bishop e4, you can go f3 and then take. In many lines, you are just happy to take this bishop. Like, this is, I know this, I play a very similar game in an Slav, in this line where we have this and they go bishop f5, sorry, knight f6 and bishop f5. Many times all we will do is just knight h4 and take the bishop. And it's not too much again. I mean, it's like, but maybe, yeah, I will show you these two games I had because it can happen in some lines like this. I remember also in the London where they play uh, bishop f5, I think. So knight e2, e6. Here we can also play knight h4, right? Or queen b6, queen b3, and try to take the bishop. But if we get something like this, we are slightly better, right? Uh, Ideally, we can keep this bishop. But even if we trade on d6, like we do bishop d3, bishop d6, I guess I would try some of these two moves, right? But even if we take and go knight f3, this is a good position for white. Like, we are stopping this. If you play e5, we always take, and d5 is weak. We can block on d4. It's isolated d pawn. And I suppose ideally we want to keep the bishop. I suppose we can go bishop e5, bishop e3. Taking this pawn seems like losing a piece, right? Because g3 will trap the bishop always. So maybe something like this is better, and here we can go h3. I don't know. Keeping the two bishops. It's something. I mean, it's what black should be. I mean, more afraid than bishop takes d6, I assume.
Mm.
So yeah, I will copy again that it's from a Slav, but I believe it could be a good example. I don't know if you download this or not.
I got it.
Okay, so I had this game. This is the line I was telling you, right? That in the Slav they can go bishop f5, and this also applies for opposite color, right? When your opponent play a setup like this and you don't play the h3 move at some point, and then they take the bishop, right? So I did knight c3, e6, knight h4 immediately. Um, it's this move, for example, is much better than playing bishop d3. And maybe at lower levels, people will go bishop d3 because feels like you develop, you play e4, and everything is more or less fine. But the truth is that with this move, you don't get any advantage. Yes. Okay, okay.
All right, I'm back.
Um, so if we just trade the bishop for the bishop, we don't get anything. I mean, it's gonna be more or less equal. We want to play e4, win a bit the space. Black can go bishop e4 and avoid this, and it's equal, right? So if we want to be a bit more ambitious, we have to go for the bishop, right? We need to play knight h4. Now, what alternatives black has? Always these three, right? After any variation like this, we will take the bishop. Here we will go f3, bishop g4. I think we can go queen b3 and then h3 g4. But ideally, we want to take the bishop with this knight on h4, right? Not this, for example, because after d takes, it's very annoying that they might be trapping our knight. We need to play g3 to play knight g2, but it's a bit sad. So bishop g6, I don't take it immediately. This happens also in the London, right? When you have the bishop on g3, right? Your opponent can take it like this or with the knight. If you still have the rook on h1, it's probably better to wait a bit, right? Maybe the best timing to take is when black castle. And that's what I did in this game, right? I go bishop e2 to prevent bishop h5 also because could be a way to to leave, right? Imagine I go, I don't know, a3, just to make a bad move, and they go bishop h5. Now I can't take this bishop so easily. I don't want to trade it, right? And if I do something like this, at some point when I go h3 g4, the move I have to consider is some knight move attacking my knight. So well, I went bishop e2, and now I went g3. I remember this move was very precise. Now the computer says we can just castle and it's the same. But the idea of g3 was avoiding castle 94. So why is 94 so good? Well, not really so good, but the problem is the queen attacks the knight now and kind of force us to either take on g6 or play g3, right? If I take on g3, he takes with the pawn. Well, this is quite annoying. And there was a line like takes, for example, don't remember what's the best move, but bishop here is coming, right? Even if we try to open lines, they would play takes bishop d6, attacking the pawn. And after g3 or h3, just c5. And this position is almost winning for black, right? Because queen e5 is an idea, g5, g4 is an idea, castle queenside will happen. So I went g3 to prevent this line. I mean, I want to castle, but I don't want to allow 94 forcing me. And I want to take the bishop when he castle, right? This is very important, and this is what applies for the London. So bishop e7, I castle. Now he castle, and now I take the bishop, right? I think this is the right timing in the opening. Like when the rook is not going to annoy me. And now, well, g3 could be weakening, but what's the good? I mean, why is g3 fine here? Because first of all, he doesn't have the square bishop, right? And second, I have this bishop that I can put it on g2 later, like or from f3 from f1, but I can cover these squares with my bishop, right? So now I remember this is theory. I went queen b3, just bishop d2, rook ac1. Looks like I'm not doing too much, but what did I get from the opening? Two bishops, right? And this b5 kind of weakens c6. So what do you think uh, wide development will be? Like, how do you want to put the pieces if you can, let's say, improve them as much as you can?
The the rooks should go on c1,
Yes. Where the
and
knight, the bishops. If you want like an ideal setup from this position, what would be?
the knight probably, if they can get to d3,
Yeah, exactly. The
uh,
knight on this way.
I guess the bishop going to g2. Um, or like I'll probably just put it on f3, and then if I have to, move it to g2.
Yeah, I mean, more or less like that. I mean, if you can put the knight here, the bishop covering these squares, and the rook on c1, you have more or less the best setup you can get. Then, your worst piece in this position, it's gonna be the bishop, always, because your pawns, right, will be a lot uh, on the same color. So, usually you have to see your pawn structure to see like which bishop is your good bishop, and this means, well, you really need this one to cover the squares that the pawns are not covering, right? And this one on d2, you can trade it. I mean, the bishop before is going to be very reasonable. Bishop a5 if you can at some point. Uh, so the rest of the game, it's strange because it looks I'm not doing too much, but this is what I wanted from the opening, right? And it's a very slow game and positional, right? Nothing tactical is happening here. all I did was taking the bishop, developing, right? Bringing the pieces like even if it's rook fd1, rook ac1, bishop d2 is developing, right? It's very slow. So I went queen c2 to play b3 when he plays knight c4. That's also important. Now I went bishop f1 to go to g2, but most important to allow to play knight e2 and knight f4 and knight e3, right? Then I go knight e2 attacking this pawn. He needs to defend after knight c4. I went. I don't know if this is the best move. I went bishop e1, but what I like about this game is that my moves are all very slow. Like it's rook d1, rook c1, bishop d2, bishop b1, bishop f1, queen c2. It's all one square by one square, and it's actually improving a lot. Uh, I don't know if it's. I mean, this is my bad bishop, so probably he won't take. But if I would prefer trading the bishop for this bishop, ideally. So that's why I keep my bishop. Then I bring my knight to f4, and here I provoke g4, which I believe maybe it's not the best. Like I could play knight e3 immediately, but I like this move because he needs to play g4. Now I put the bishop where I want. My next move is here. My next move is here. And then c6 is weak. G4 might be weak. I still have the two bishops. Um, so I go knight e3, b3, and now I went knight c5. Here I don't know if this is the best. Maybe now I would consider this move because I want to try the bishop whenever he moved the knight. But this move is reasonable. Then I went h3, right, to start pushing a bit my king side. Another plan in the long term is moving the bishop, going king g2, rook h1, and attacking, right? The queen on c2. And he's very passive. He's just waiting what I want to play, right? So I went bishop a5, when knight e3 attacking c6, takes. He needs to do this to not lose the pawn, right? It's already very messy. Now I trade the bishop, and now I go king g2. So again, it's move 32, and nothing really happens. But now the computer says white is completely winning, and this is pure positional game, right? Like this is +2 or more. Why? Because well, I have the h file, c6 is weak. I have the bishop against this knight, which is really bad. The knight can go to c5 or e5. The queen on a7 is very bad. The rook on c7 is bad. There's a lot of factors that made my position very good. And now, as usual, this is uh, a complicated game. I mean, it's like you don't only win by playing good positional moves. It's like you, as I think we talked in the past, you might be very good at tactics, or you can train tactics all you want, but if you don't play the positional part in a good way, then you won't have good tactical chances, right? And now, I mean, he has weaknesses. I have potential plans. He needs to worry about many things. The situation is more or less fine to start finding tactics, right? So I bring queen e2, queen f3. And here I go knight f4, attacking the pawn. And the moment he goes rook d8, this is where uh, I have the only tactic of the game, but it's just winning, playing bishop e6, right? And I will win d5 and then the game. But it's like the previous part is much more important than bishop e6. Usually, if you do tactics, you will get only this position, right? You will find bishop e6, it will be fine. But I believe from move, I don't know, let's say to move 10 to 30, if we start in this position, right? And we check the next 20 moves, I don't feel white is doing too much, but at the same time, I'm improving a lot the position. I really like this game because it's outplaying just from a positional point of view, right? After bishop e6, it's game over. Then, well, I take the pawn, I start pushing, and doesn't matter. I even have knight h5 at some point, and queen f7, and the game is. This is one of my most correct games in this lab, I remember. But what I'm trying to show you is that sometimes just taking the bishop for the knight is good reason to play for the win, right? So in these lines where usually you won't be playing c4, right? But your opponent can play uh, bishops here in many different ways, like I don't know, positions like this, right? Where you can take this bishop, it's more or less the same thing, right? If you take the bishop is reasonable, like you can do this here and you go knight h4, it's good. The same if they go bishop h4, as you were saying, right? In a position like this, you play queen b3. Here you go knight h4, and then you do this, and you take the bishop. It's good. I mean, it's something. I mean, it's much better than playing bishop e2 castle, allowing the bishop to be here, right? Or much better to do this than playing bishop d3 here. You never want to play bishop d3 in a situation like this. It's very, very strange. You need to attack the bishop with the knight and keep the two bishops uh, every time you can. Of course, black can do better orders to avoid these type of things. But if they don't play h6 and we have the chance to do that, we should go for that. I mean, and remember this position as well, e6, where knight h4 is very reasonable, right? To take the bishop. And then, well, we can get a position like this. And it's slightly better for white. I mean, that's simple. Even in this position, maybe playing with g3 will make a lot of sense because the only thing black gets in favor after knight g6 is the h file, right? And putting pressure on h2. If we want to keep the bishop, it's great to play g3 here, right? After bishop d6, we can do some of these two moves. Probably bishop g5 because it's not easy to kick the bishop. And then bishop g2 castle, for example. And this type of position is very good. Uh, Another idea of playing this is, well, just go bishop d3 and after bishop d6 takes a knight f3, as we said, right? This is also reasonable. I would be a bit afraid of this one because if we castle, they play g5, right? But what can we do? Queen e2, castle queenside, king b1, put the knight on e5 or go h3 or g3 h4. It's like this pawn structure is not so good because this knight g5 will be annoying at some point. So here, ideally, we play queen e2. We go this way with the king, h3 here, and at some point knight g5. And then black needs to keep a rook or the queen defending the pawn all the time. And we just develop. I mean, we push little by little. But, well, some ideas on this line. The other position, or the other game I wanted to show you is similar, also from a slab, but this was against Durar Bailey, a GM that he played wrong the opening at some point. Okay, and do you want to download this? So I copy. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So another game, very similar idea. I mean, my opponent goes bishop f5, I go knight h4, but now he goes bishop e4. The other typical reaction. I believe this is probably the move I would play as black because I kind of want to provoke f3, right? Then I go back, but now this this diagonal is weaker because we did f3 and we don't have g3 so easily, right? It's much better to have g3 in this structure like this. But when we play f3, just for example, if we takes and we face this move, they are attacking h2. If we go g3, they take it now because the rook is hanging, right? There is also some tactics with rook takes h2. Rook takes, bishop takes, rook f2, and some queen h4 coming in the end. So this is annoying, and now we have to be careful. I went queen b3. Why? Because I would be super happy to see queen b6, so I can trade queens and take the bishop, right? Uh, why? Because if I trade queens, then my king is gonna be safe anywhere on e1, on f2, or whatever. If I trade queens, I should be happy. But my opponent goes queen c7. Of course, this is the right move. Now I don't want to take because again, I mean, there's tactics here, and after this move, I need to be careful with the tactics. Rook h2, bishop c3. Uh, Even with the bishop on e7, I believe sometimes he could play rook h2, takes queen g3, and after this something like knight moves and bishop h4. There are tactics like that. So I went bishop d2, and after bishop e7, g3. I think very important move. Why? Because I'm waiting for him to castle. Same time the previous game, right? He goes knight b7 and I go rook c1. With this move, well, I already say my king is gonna be in the center on the king side or on f2. And after knight b6, I takes and I go king f2. Why? Because I don't want to take the bishop till he castle, right? I will only take the bishop when he castle. He can't escape because here I can go this move whenever I want. Also, I can play knight f5, bishop d3. The king on f2 is doing okay here. But if he castle any moment, well, now I'm threatening to take this pawn probably because the queen is hanging. That's why he oh that's why he went knight b6, right? But I wouldn't take here because now it's a problem. So I did this a4, a5, a4, bishop e4. I went king g2, like waiting that he castle, right? Because what I want to do here is take some bishop d3. But I don't want to take if the rook is on h8. This is so similar to London setups. So I go king g2, castle. Finally, I takes bishop d3, and I have this position. What do you think? I mean, if you have to evaluate this position, uh, you prefer white? You prefer black? It's equal. Why?
Mm, I guess white, since they have the bishop pair, and maybe there's like at some point could play e4.
Mhm.
Um, like maybe I put the h rook on f1 or something first, and then try to start pushing the e and maybe just the e pawn.
Yeah, I mean, I probably objectively speaking, this is close to equal, right? Because black is very solid. I mean, the bishop on before is nice. This is nice. But the two factors you mentioned are the reason why I prefer to be white here. I have two bishops, right? The position is gonna be open whenever I want if I play e4. But I need to play e4 in good conditions, right? I can't play e4 here because I will be destroyed. My pieces are not ready. But uh, no one forced me to play e4 now, right? I can prepare e4 for all the moves I want. And that's what I did. I mean, I went rook e1, I went rook e2, rook d1, bishop c1. And now I want to play e4. And well, I guess this position is already better for white. My opponent went c5, which is really well because now I just play knight takes e5. The rest doesn't matter too much because I mean I have an extra pawn and I didn't understand why he gave the pawn. But the truth is that if he goes knight f8, knight here, I'm playing e4, right? Or bishop moves, so the rook defends e2 and then e4. And this is what I wanted from the opening, right? When the moment I take the bishop, well, bishop d3, I know my plan is playing e4. But I need to prepare this as much as I can, right? I could play rook, 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 bishop c1, maybe even bishop b1 or bishop c2. So the rook on d1 is supporting d4. Then I play e4. And now my two bishops are fantastic, right? He doesn't have a wood square on d5. And every time I go e4 and he takes, how will I take on e4? What do you think?
I think I would just take with the f pawn.
Yes, exactly. You have to take with the f1 first of all because you need to like occupy the center, right? You don't want to. get isolated the pawn and a knight blocking on d5. That would be terrible. Then, in any case, if in this position, before c5, right, c5 blunders, but if you do this and I go uh, probably bishop something, I would think something like this to play e4. Maybe e4 immediately is working if I take with the bishop, but probably it's not what I want in general. I would be happy to move the bishop, go e4 and take with the pawn, and then play e5. Then if he, at some point, uh, face this, and I play e5, he will get 95, but I will go 94. And it's like, yeah, I will just move anything to play e5 here, 94, right? This type of position is great for me because my two bishops are ready for anything that happens on the queen side. I can put my queen on c2, I can push h5. The knight is coming here, these pawns are solid. So this is more or less the position I had in mind from this position, like when I'm waiting till he castles to take the bishop and then play, it's more or less that. I mean, I believe uh, many lines in the London have this in common as well, right? And that's why I'm showing you slab positions because I have more examples here, but the the lines were the line you just mentioned, right? The line with bishop g4 that we play this. Queen a4 is an option in this particular case. I believe it's not very nice when we play a move like it's only working here because of specific reasons, right? The bishop is on g4, and if the bishop is on f5, queen a5 is probably bad. Uh, so it's probably confusing, and you might do it in some position that you shouldn't. But know that here with the bishop on g4, this is reasonable. But if you don't do that, you always have the chance to play knight h4, right? Or h3, bishop h5, knight h4. So you get up. They go this, for example. You play g4. Uh, they do this, and you take, right? And you can probably put the bishop on g2 immediately. This position is better for white, always, always. Like the two bishops, the chance to open the position later, right? Because if castle, well, you can even plan some attack. You can even play e4 later to open the diagonal. So uh, there is also a move that usually happens when this that is moving the knight, right? 97, for example. And here in this particular case, you have many good alternatives, like defending the knight is one, right? So you don't get what you don't want to see is this. I mean, this structure is not so nice for you. I don't like it. But what you can do is this to defend the knight, and after this just take. Also, a bit more complex, the move knight f5, right? Because now takes 6, this pawn will suffer. It's like you are losing the knight on h4 for sure, so you want to choose where. You don't want to see this, but you're happy to see this, right? It's a huge difference to weaken d5. And this happens, I don't know if you remember, in the like in this position where they play knight h5, right? We do this here, we play 91. So takes is good for us. Knight f4, we have to play bishop g3, not take, because takes makes this pawn quite weak. Same happens after c takes d4. This is the line we talked the other day. If we play c takes, they go knight f4. And we don't want to see this pawn suffering. So what we will do is something like this, right? We keep the pawn structure. We have this kind of weak queen side, king side for black. We can bring knight. We can defend b2 in many ways. And yeah, some things in common. And Slav and London, especially Slavs, were black the yellow of the bishop, right? Because bishop f5 is more or less like a London with reverse colors, if you want to see it that way. Um, and yeah, especially when we play e3. because when white goes knight c3, this move is not possible anymore. I mean, it's playable, but takes queen b3, kind of force you to go back to c8 because there's no other good move. Queen b6, what's the problem?
I think because you can just take and their pawn structure is worse.
Yeah, that's one thing, but there's something more tactical, let's say.
Maybe knight takes d5,
And queen b3.
and then I think you take the knight with check, and then take the queen back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean this is the problem, and this is why we have to play c takes b5 first. I move it quickly, and now I'm thinking if you start with queen b3, then queen b6. I mean, it's probably still bad because we can play queen b6, pawn takes, and the structure is good. But if we try to win the pawn, they will take on b3 first, right? Then maybe even knight e5 to be more solid. This is not too easy. Uh,
Mhm.
but with takes, then we go queen b3, and this bishop f5 needs to go back to c8, which, well, if you are black and you play bishop f5, bishop here, you have like three tempos instead of one, right? It's gonna be two probably because you still move, but white development is just too good. Uh, and yes, that applies for every position where we can go for this bishop. And the other important advice is never, I mean, in any London like this, never play bishop d3. Like never. It's never good. Like you don't want to trade the bishop and play that because you make the position very even. Black will do the same and it's gonna be equal. You need to, if they develop the bishop too quickly, you need to play c4 queen b3, right?
Mhm.
If for some reason he's okay with that, well, go for the bishop with the knight, but don't go bishop d3 because that's not the way to play this position for an advantage. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, well, guess that's more or less about the London. You still have a few chapters to see.
Mhm.
Um, then also any question, or also if you start playing some games and you start facing like some setup that you didn't see in the book, or you just don't know what to do. I don't know. Are you playing these days? How much are you playing? Or
I haven't played in a while. I want to find time again, but I might play
are you
sometime
are
this
you
week or next.
streaming?
Yeah, a little bit. I've been trying to get back into it a little bit more. I do know a lot of people, they like to see more like blitz and rapid games, so like I can just do like all at once, like stream like some rapid games, and then I have stuff to talk about during the lessons, and also do like some blitz. So yeah,
Yes, yes,
I
that's
plan to
nice.
start doing that a little bit more often.
And are you doing tactics and the end game records, or not anymore? How is it?
Um, I'm keeping up with some of the in-game records. I'm not really worried about them, although sometimes I know I can get more of the records, but I don't know, like, because it'll just take away time from studying the openings and other things. So, because I remember you mentioned the London book like a long time ago, and I haven't
Hmm.
like barely just getting through it, partly because the in-game stuff was
Yeah, yeah.
distracting
No,
me. So,
and also I guess, well, it's different training, but for your games and if you're trying to improve your rating and so on, it's gonna be much more important that you learn very well the London, and I mean, and you start playing it and feeling the positions. Like sometimes you read the book, but then when you play the position, you will know like, okay, I faced this idea before. I have to trade this piece and not the other one. I need to attack this way and not some other way. You will start like knowing patterns in the line that it's a bit study, but mostly experience. So once you finish the book, I mean, it would be great if you can start playing. And if you want, I mean, some advice could be select games that you play. I mean, during the week or whenever that you got some position that you didn't know what to do in the London, for example. So I don't know. You can select a few games and you will see. Okay, my opponent did this setup, and now I did this, this, and this. But maybe it's not the best, or maybe the computer doesn't like it because I assume you can like make some quick analysis with Stockfish as well and know more or less what happened. But it's important that you pay attention to the opening part. I mean, when you are white, you should have some advantage, and if you play something that makes the game slightly better for luck, you need to understand why. So you try to keep the advantage as white all the time you can, right? Of course, when it's tactical, it's easier to understand because I don't know, you blunder upon, you're worse. But when you make some trade that you think it's normal, and then the stockfish says you are slightly worse, well, something went wrong, and it's important to not repeat those mistakes. Okay.
Mm, yeah.
Yes, I don't know if you have any other doubt. If
Mm,
not, we can continue next time, and I suppose the finish with the London, and maybe we can take a look at the night of a bit.
yeah. Oh, there was like there were like two London books though, so this only teach me about like D4, D5.
Yes, yes, but the other one is recommending the Torre attack. I had another one. I will try
Yeah,
to
it was like
find
the
it and send it.
Agile London. I have that one too.
That one. Yes, yes, yes. Yes,
Would it be
that's the one
better
I
to
was thinking.
start reading that one after this one, or switch to like learning more Nidor stuff and then come back to the other one? Like I don't know if I should just.
Maybe you can do that one after, like,
Yeah.
because you will have half of your repertoire, right? Because I don't know what you face more. I suppose should be more or less 50-50. I mean, between D5 and Knight F6. Uh, but in my opinion, you should play the London against both, not like Sedlak is recommending in his volume 2 to play Tory attack. I I know it's not winning with the London if you recommend the Tory attack, and I believe the London is playable against D5 or Knight F6. But yes, the Agile book, you have it, that one. Yeah, yeah, that one would be great to complement the rest of the. I mean, especially against King's India and Grunfeld players, you need to know some other setups.
I'll
Okay.
try to finish this book and I'll try to get through a lot of the other one as well. So it'll just be like a lot of London this week, and also I'll try to play some games.
Yeah, yeah. Ideally, you can finish those two books. I mean, not for next time, of course, but in the next weeks, and try to play some games. I mean, those two things will make you understand, and also face systems or things that people do that is not in the book, right? You have to. I mean, you will know better than me or the opening three. What are you facing in the games? Because what is more popular for me, maybe at your level, people do always other thing, and yeah, you will know better. So that's why playing it, it's gonna be important. Okay. Well, we do next week, right? Same time.
Yep, that should be good.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.